Bāhusaccañca, sippañca, vinayo cha susikkhito, Subhāsitā cha vācā, etaṃ maṅgalamuttamaṃ. Great learning, great ability, discipline thoroughly acquired, speech which is well spoken. This is the highest blessing. So we are putting up the Pali grammar danger alert. There isn't much grammar to cover. Everything here, everything that we see here is actually in the nominative case, except for the words cha. And keep in mind, we've come across this very often and will continue to come across it. Whenever we have cha, we have to be on the lookout for some sort of sound change, and we're getting that here. It should be this, but we're getting this when the cha follows that. That happens here a couple times. One thing to mention, this bahu is an adjective meaning great or many. We came across that in verse 2. And I do believe this bahu is to be understood with sippañca. This is poetry, and it's caused things to be condensed. And so really, that is the main thing. Everything here is in the nominative case. There's not a whole lot to cover. These are neuter, nominative singular neuters. These are nominative singular masculines. These are nominative singular feminines. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. And this we've covered, etaṃ maṅgalamuttamaṃ. So these are, once again, nominative singular neuters. So one thing about this that's a little strange, the way I'm understanding this is that which is vācā is Subhāsitā. In English, I think it would get flipped around. We would say this, vācā, which is a word saying speech, which is Subhāsitā, which is well spoken. That in a way is also sort of poetic. I think what's going on here is that it's that which is speech is well spoken. I think that's how we can understand this. Okay, Pali grammar danger alert over. Now, overall, I would say that this verse is about what I've written here: knowledge, skill/art, behavior, and speech. And these are all interrelated. That's one of the takeaways, I think. These are actually kind of hard to separate out from one another. Actually, kind of impossible. And as we go through this, it's good to keep that in mind, and I'm saying that to myself. So, we have great learning. This saccaṃ looks like it would be sacca, truth, but it really, I think, is more related to the verb to hear. And so it's actually, you can think of suttaṃ, keeping in mind how people used to learn, especially back in the Buddha's day, was by listening to other people, not so much by reading. One who heard a lot is someone who learned a lot. And of course, we're all familiar with evaṃ me suttaṃ, so I've heard, or thus heard by me. So this is great learning, erudition. And this could be in, humanistic, scientific. I put down here mathematic, which might be part of scientific. However you want to understand those, even something like medical knowledge. And this is where it's hard to separate out something like medical knowledge from the act of, knowing about healing and being able to heal. It is a great blessing to have erudition, but also to have access to people who know what they're doing, people who can build bridges, but people who know the theory behind that. But there's also just a beauty to learning for the sake of learning, to keep the mind nimble. So I won't say much more about that. I will let you, dear listener, reflect upon erudition, profound knowledge, great learning, and the blessings that come with that. Sippañca. Now here we want to think about art, aesthetics, skill, ability. I wrote down here original sense of artis and techne. Now, artis is the Latin word, and this is actually where we get our word art. The Greek term that corresponds to that is techne, and we obviously get words like technical and technique from that. Something to think about with art in this sense is it's not something that we would simply passively sort of imbibe or consume, but art is obviously, it was a skill. So, and we still talk about the medical arts. So one idea to think about here is that no matter what one does, whether we build a birdhouse or a cathedral, that we bring to it this idea that it's going to, whatever is going to be done well, is going to be well made. And actually, we can even think about nature in some sense as a producer of beauty with some qualifications there. Now we have vinayo. This word, this is the first basket of the Tipitaka, the section of the canon that deals with rules and regulations by which monks and nuns live. So I think here it really has the meaning of ethics or moral behavior. It could even mean, obviously it means something like rules, but it could also mean like a rule in logic. But again, I think moral behavior and susikkhito, well learned, thoroughly acquired, a thoroughly acquired moral behavior. You can see why this is important, because just like sila, samadhi, and paññā, it's hard to separate those out. And the sila, the virtue part, is to help keep everything steady and grounded. Likewise, we don't want to become, perhaps, we don't want to be good at making machines of death, for instance, machines that are going to bring about harm. So having a good moral bearing will keep us from that. Subhāsitā, well said, is that which is speech. We could turn this kind of into a verb and say that which is spoken is well said. Subhāsitā. Here, I think we could think about this in two ways. One is to be articulate and clear in our speaking, but also well said in a way that does not harm people. We don't hide behind, well, I'm just telling the truth, when in fact we're just trying to hurt people. I think all of that would come under Subhāsitā. We are speaking in ways that are going to be clear and helpful also in building people up. And then we conclude here, etaṃ maṅgalamuttamaṃ. This is the highest blessing. This is one of the most fortunate circumstances. So I think the last thing I would say here is that we should always be mindful of these blessings and really take a moment and be thankful if and when we realize that we are the recipient of any or all of these. And if we're not, perhaps there are ways we can help bring about what is spoken of here.